You guys ever heard of Pastor Joe Fox? Yeah. One of my favorite people. And we are blessed that he is here this morning, and he is going to reprove and instruct us about what? I have no idea. But while that is taking place, pay attention, shut up, and be respectful. Y'all tracking? Tracking. Awesome. PJ, you're up.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome, brother.
Shalom, y'all. Shalom. Woo. Can you hear me? Yes, sir. All right. The acoustics in here are a little weird, though, right? It's like wah, wah, wah. All right, let me put on my glasses. I don't think I'm going to reprove you today. I don't think so. I mean, the Spirit may take me there, but I don't think that's going to happen. I will give you pastors after my own heart who will feed you with knowledge and understanding. Jeremiah, 3:15? I tell people, I'm going to feed you. It's up to you whether you eat or not, right? I'm going to put it out there. Let's pray first. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for bringing us all together and focused on you and fellowship. Father, I just pray that as I give this talk, that I give the words that you would like me to give and that they are received in the manner that you wish them to be received. In Yeshua's name, amen. Amen. So I was told, arming the saints, that's the overarching theme, and we're using as let's turn to Luke, please. Luke chapter 12, verse 40, right? That's our kind of verse. And let me find it. Luke chapter 12, verse 40. I'm not going to ask anybody to raise their hand and read today, but please read along. It'll just make the transition smoother as we go. And I'm reading generally from the King James, but it's okay. You'll get it. So Luke 12:40, be ye therefore ready also, for the Son of Man cometh at an hour ye think not. Right? That's the verse. Let's just read that in context. Let's come back to 35. Who's speaking? Who's speaking here? Yeshua, right? Let your loins be girded about, and your lamps burning. And ye yourselves like unto men that wait on their master, when he will return from the wedding, that when he comes and knocks, they may open unto him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the Lord, the master, when he comes, shall find watching. Verily I say unto you, that he shall gird himself and make them to sit down to meat, and will come forth and serve them. And it shall come, and if he shall come in the second watch, or come in the third watch, and find them so, blessed are those servants. And this, know, if he, the master of the house, had known that the hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not have suffered the house to be broken through. And then we get to our verse. Be ye therefore ready also, for the Son of Man comes at an hour when you think not. And so there's a couple, and that's the chunk of Scripture that puts it in context. There's a couple groups or individuals that we read about here. In verse 37, blessed are those servants who are watching when he returns, right? So they are ready, they are up, they're paying attention. And then if they do, they get rewarded. And then the good man, this is another little parable, if you will. If the master of the home had known that he was going to be broken in, what would he be doing? Watching. If you knew somebody was going to kick your door in at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, you'd be ready for that, right? You'd be watching. And so then we get down to the end. Having given these examples, Yeshua says, be ye therefore ready also. Because the Son of Man, he's talking about himself, comes when you're not ready. And so we are he is calling us to be ready, to be watchful, to be prepared, if you will, for what's coming. Let's go to Mark chapter 13. You all know what Mark 13 is about? You should. Mark 13 is worth you reading in detail. Mark 13 is about the end times. And I'm going to put it in context. So we're going to start in verse 1. And we're talking about Yeshua here, he went out of the temple, and as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples said unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here. And Yeshua answering said unto him, Seest thou these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. I was just talking with some brothers, I guess, last night, maybe the day before. What was Yeshua's job before he was gathering disciples? What did he do for a living? He's a carpenter, right? You see that bumper sticker, my boss is a Jewish carpenter. And so I was working on my house, building it, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And my forearm got tired from using my circular saw up on the roof cutting board that I was putting down. And I thought to myself, Yeshua was a carpenter. I wonder what kind of tools he used, because I know he didn't use a skill saw. And so I went on a self-research, what kind of saws and tools and hammers did they use 2,000 years ago in Israel, or at least the Middle East? You know what I found? Not much. So then I went, y'all know what a Strong's Concordance is? I met somebody yesterday that didn't know what one was. I went to a Strong's Concordance, I looked up the word carpenter. It's a person who works with wood or stone. And then it hit me. Think about all the parables that Yeshua told. This is one of them. Do you see what great stones are here? There won't be one stone left. He talks about foundations on sand. Yeshua, I am convinced, was what we call today a mason, a stone mason. Look it up. And that, if you think about that, this guy, before he started his ministry, if you will, he was using stones and rocks and a hammer and a chisel. And think about those hands when he was flipping tables over. Right? He wasn't the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, soft-hand, manicured nails Jesus. Right? He was a dude. Right? You shake his hand, you're going to feel something. So anyway, do your own research on that. That's not where we're going today. I just felt like going there. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives over against the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately, Tell us, when shall these things be? When there won't be one stone upon another. And what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled? That's kind of like us, right? Oh, you're talking about some heavy cataclysmic stuff. When is this going to happen? And how are we going to know, that these times are approaching us? And this is why you should know Mark 13, because he gives us a lot of clues here. And Yeshua answered them, and he began to say, Take heed, lest any man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, I am the Messiah, I am the anointed, and shall deceive many. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled. I get this a lot on the internet. I talk about, Russia's doing this, and people are like, don't be troubled. It doesn't mean there's not war coming. It doesn't mean there's not possibly war coming to the United States. It's just don't be troubled, because it's not the end of the age yet. There's still stuff that has to happen. And what we're reading here, and you can compare it in Revelation and stuff like that, is that there are wars coming before the end of the age. Wars and rumors of wars and what I call a disturbance in the force, right? For such things must needs be, but the end shall not be yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Nation against nation is ethnos against ethnos. It's what we would characterize more today like race war. Or what's going on in Africa, you may not be able to tell the difference between one tribe of people in Nigeria and the other tribe, but they can, and they kill each other. Sunni and Shia. They're both Muslims. Some of them are radical. They don't like each other, right? And so that kind of war can be going on. And then kingdom against kingdom is kind of what we think about country against country. And there shall be earthquakes in diverse places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. When Yeshua said this, were there earthquakes happening in the earth? Yes. All right, come on, I need some participation here. Yes, there were. Were they happening in diverse places? They were. So what does that mean? And that's a rhetorical question. I think what that means is there's going to be big honking earthquakes happening, not just in Pompeii, but here and, personally, I think New Madrid, Yellowstone, Ring of Fire, Chile, those things are going to happen. And when I used to have an office job and I just sat on a computer all day, I literally had a 3x5 card taped to my cubicle, and every time there was a 7.0 earthquake anywhere in the world or bigger, I would write it down in the date. And I said, if there's ever 3 in a 2-week period, my attention is going to be, on alert. Something to think about. We're actually going somewhere with this. I just want to put it in context. But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils, and in synagogues you shall be beaten, and you shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for Yeshua's sake, for a testimony against them. And the gospel must first be published among all the nations. But when they shall lead you and deliver you up, take no thought beforehand what ye shall speak. This is for some of you. If you get arrested in these end times and it's an anti-Christ type movement, and they've got you in a cell and they're going to bring you before their kangaroo court or jury, probably to execute you, and we can read elsewhere with guillotines, right? Be in prayer, but you don't have to prepare your speech like I have a talk kind of outlined today where we're going to go. You don't have to do that. The Father is going to give you what to speak in the moment. Just be open to that and be aware that that's going to happen. Give no thought beforehand of what ye shall speak, neither do ye premeditate. But whatsoever shall be given to you in that hour, that speak ye. For it is not you that speak, but the Holy Ghost, or the Ruach HaKodesh. Now the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son, and the children shall rise up against their parents, and shall cause them to be put to death. Okay, there are bad kids out there, right? There's teenagers that just turn into hellions and they turn against their family, but I don't think that's what this is talking about. When you look at the familial bonds and people are turning each other in, and basically they're turning people into Antichrist. I think they're not doing it out of hatred. I think they're not doing it out of meanness or spitefulness. I think they're doing it out of love. And I used to use my mother, rest her soul, as an example. And I said, she will be fooled by this Antichrist system. She will be. And I think when the Antichrist is ruling, my mother would have gotten up and said, oh, Master or Antichrist or whatever, you've got to go save my son. He's hiding in the Ozarks with a bunch of other confused people. You need to go get him. He's here. Not to turn me in to be, tortured or killed or whatever, but because she thought he was the Christ. That's something to ponder on too. But anyway, it'll cause them to be put to death. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. That's already starting to happen, right? Start talking about Yeshua or Jesus. Like in Canada, I think there's whole kinds of things that you can't say from the Bible. But he that endures till the end, the same shall be saved. But when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not, let him that reads understand, and let them that be in Judea flee to the mountains. And let them that is on the housetop not go down into the house, neither enter therein to take anything out of the house. When it's time to go, it's time to go. It's not time to run around like you're chicken with your head cut off. It's time to get going. You don't have time for that. And let them that be in the field not turn back again to take up his garment. But woe unto them that are with child, and them that give suck in those days. And pray ye that your flight come not in the winter. For in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of creation, which Elohim created unto this time, neither shall be. And except that Yahweh had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he has chosen, he has shortened the days. And then if any man shall say to you, Lo, here is Christ, or Lo, he is there, believe him not. For false Christs and false prophets shall rise and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if that were possible, even the elect. But take ye heed, behold, I have foretold you all things. Do you see how he's saying repeatedly, pay attention? This is what's happening. Be aware of what's going. It's starting to sound like our key verse, watch, because you don't know when Yeshua is coming back. But here he's telling you, no man knows the hour. But he's giving us the seasons. He's giving us the playbook. He's letting us know what happens. Why? So you can increase your watchfulness in what's going on. In those days after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened. We're in 24. And the moon shall not give up her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. Whole teaching on that. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then shall he send his angels, his messengers, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you, in like manner, when you shall see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the doors. Verily, I say unto you, this generation, the one that's seeing these things, shall not pass till all these things be done. That was all context for these next couple scriptures. Verses, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and that hour knoweth no man, no, not the messengers which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Here we go. Take ye heed, watch, and pray, for you know not when the time is. It starts sounding like our verse, or the verse that's on your card that y'all got. For the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants, and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. Watch you therefore, for you know not when the master of the house comes, in the evening, or at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. And what I say unto you, I say unto you all, watch. So we are supposed, you've heard be a watchman on the wall, right? That's kind of a phrase that's popular out there. We are to be watchful. And when you're watching, it's not just standing on the wall looking out, like bored, thinking about, I don't know, the football game coming on tonight or something. It's watching with a purpose. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know, oh, that's a confirmation of what Yeshua said was going to happen. That's nothing. That's dangerous. That's safe. And so we are called to be watchmen. You can't be a watchman if you're drunk or high or, whatever, or asleep or focused on kittens chasing balls of yarn on one of those apps or something. I was talking to another brother recently. We have the power of knowledge in our hands, and it kills me what people use it for. Like I said, kittens chasing balls of string, or porn, or me. I'm on X, and somehow I get all the videos where people just like, bam, sucker punch people and stuff. It's like, why am I watching this? The first couple were like, all right, I know about pre-attack indicators and cues and stuff like that. It just confirmed them all, but why do I keep watching it? It's a waste of time. Do you know if we had to give somebody an appendectomy right here on a table, I think we could probably learn how to do it on the internet. Now, we wouldn't be able to handle any complications that arose or something like that without more training, but I think we could probably do an appendectomy with what we could learn on the internet. We're just regular Joes. Maybe we have a surgical nurse here or something, I don't know. But if you look at like verse 34, he's talking, and 33, take you heed, that's one. He talks about the servants paying attention. He talks about every man, and this is in 34, paying attention. He talks about the porter, and then watch. So if they're all having to be watchful, you also be watchful. Arming the saints. I prayed about what I was going to speak about today. And I know you all know this. The Bible is written on several levels. And even though when we get into these levels, they're different, they're all true. They all have applicability. There's the spiritual level, and that's where I was led to go initially, but we're not going that way. There's the historical level. You know, you can look at this, put it in context, and go, this is what's happening. There's also the practical level. And I got from the Father, you have practical skill sets, you have practical knowledge to put out that relates to this subject matter. That's what I'm putting out today. And that's why I said I don't think I'm going to rebuke or chastise anybody. I'm just going to give you some information, hopefully, that you find useful. So speaking of watching, speaking of being ready, speaking of dangerous times coming, let's go to Luke chapter 22. Anybody know where I'm going? I just realized something. Do you know I bought a prop for you guys? I bought a prop, and I left it in the trunk of my car. We are going to go on without it. I will fabricate a prop. But I did. I bought it just for this talk. My wife's like, why did you buy this? And I said, yeah. You'll see. All right, let me get there. I'm in Acts. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Luke at 22, we're going to 35. That's where we're going to start. Luke at 22. I think we're starting in 35. Luke 22, verse 35. And when he, that's Yeshua, said unto them, that's his disciples, his apostles, when I sent you all without a purse and scrip and shoes, did you lack anything? And they said, nope, we didn't lack anything. 36. And then he said unto him, but now, he that has a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip. And he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. Does the scripture say he that has no money for a sword, let him sell his cloak and buy one? No, that's what this means. When it says he who has no sword, let him sell his cloak and buy one, the real translation is he who doesn't have any money for a sword, let him sell his cloak and buy one. It's the same thing. If you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. 37. For I say unto you that this is written that, oh, nope. We're not going to go there. Let's go down to, so he tells them you got to buy a sword. Let's go down to verse 38. And they said unto him, Master, behold, there are 2 swords. And he said unto them, it's enough. So he just told them, hey, I'm sending you out there. I want you to take your wallet. I want you to take money. And hey, if you don't have a sword, you need to sell your cloak and buy one. Y'all know what the cloak was? It was like the overgarment. It was very, very important. It's what they slept in at night when they're sleeping rough, or they end up in a building like this and they say, y'all can crash over there. That's their blanket. It keeps them warm. It keeps them kind of a little dry. It doesn't rain that much where they are, but it's their shelter. It's their house on their back. And if you don't have it, you're hurting. We can read elsewhere in Torah, if you take somebody, I'm going to lend you, $50 to go get your car fixed. You told me you'll bring me $50 back this evening. Okay, I don't know if I trust you or not. Give me your cloak, right? I'll hang on to that because I know you're going to come back and get it. Whether you give me the money or not, I got to give you your cloak back, right? You can't deprive a man of his cloak. So it's kind of an important thing to do that. All right, so 49, skip down to 49. We're going to see where these swords come in because they said, hey, we got 2 of them. So Judas shows up with the mob to arrest Yeshua. Now we can read elsewhere, Yeshua's with his apostles, and he's like, what, y'all couldn't stay up and watch with me? He's in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? He's like, y'all couldn't watch? It's kind of a theme, right? Watch ye therefore, what I say unto you, I say unto you all, watch. And these guys fall asleep at that time. How many people here keep watch on Passover? There's a teaching there for some of you. Jody was the one who got me to start doing that. Now, the first time he told me that, I'm like, what? He goes, no, we got to keep watches on Passover. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then we got out the word, we start digging into it, and I'm like, oh, we have to keep watches, except that year I had gotten up really early to get things ready and going. I've been going all day. I'm old. I go to sleep early, and I'd had a fair amount of wine. And I'm like, my God, I'm ready to collapse. I'm like, all right, I'll take the last watch, which is weak, right? It's just weak. But now we keep watch, and there's a lot to be learned in keeping watch. Just that's an aside. All right, 49. Yeah, but Yeshua said, 48, Yeshua said unto him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? When they which were about him saw what would follow, that's his men, Yeshua's men, they said unto him, Lord, shall we smite with the sword? What does smite mean? Kill. It doesn't mean shall we tap him with our sword? Shall we tell him, get away? Do you want us to kill this guy with our sword? That's what they're saying. These are the men surrounding Yeshua. Does Yeshua faint at the thought of that? Oh my God, no. Let's see what happens. And then it sounds like waiting without a response. It's like, let's go. Do you want me to kill him with sword? Bam. And then one of them smote the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. And then Yeshua said, hey, let this happen. And it says he touches his ear. Let's look at another version of this. Go to John chapter 18. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. John chapter 18. We're going to look at the same event with some different additional details. John 18, we'll start in verse 1. When Yeshua had spoken these words, he went forth with the disciples over the brook of Cedron, where there was a garden, into which he entered with his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place. For Jesus, Yeshua, oftentimes resorted thither with his disciples. He would go hang out there with his disciples. And Judas, then having received a band of men, do y'all have a number in scriptures how many men Judas was with? They're coming for Yeshua and perhaps maybe his apostles, his disciples. How many men do you think they had? Because I used to picture about 30 or 40 dudes. You know, that's like a good number of guys. Oh, no. My research is like 600 guys. They came with a mob, right? You're not fighting your way out of that one. And Judas, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, comes thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. And Yeshua, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, I love this, whom seek ye? It's like, who y'all looking for? So Yeshua steps forward. Here's this huge mob. They're coming. They got weapons. They got torches. You know, you can picture them storming the castle. And Yeshua steps to the front and say, who are y'all looking for? And they answered him, Yeshua of Nazareth. And Yeshua said unto them, I am he. That's me. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. As soon then as he said unto them, I am he, they went backwards and they fell on the ground. Y'all remember that song? Is it by Deadpool? Let the bodies hit the floor. I saw a video one time where they put Benny Hinn footage in with that song, and he would go like, and the whole crowd would fall down. But that's what happens when Yeshua said, I'm he. I'm who you're looking for. The force, the spiritual power of Yeshua, you see it in some churches, they call it slain in the spirit, right? It just knocks the crowd back and down. I know now I have to find where I was. Whom seek ye? Verse 5, and they answered, Yeshua of Nazareth. And Yeshua said unto him, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. 6. And as soon as he said that to them, I am he, they went backwards and they fell to the ground. 7. And then he asked them again, whom seek ye? Who are you looking for? And they said, Yeshua of Nazareth. And Yeshua answered, I have told you that I am he. If you therefore seek me, let these men go on their way. That the saying might be fulfilled which he spoke of them, Of them which thou gavest me, I have lost none. So he's trying to free his people. And then here we get to the nitty-gritty. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and smote the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Verse 11 is important. And then Yeshua said unto Peter, my God, Peter, what are you doing with a weapon? Throw that weapon down. We don't use weapons. We're men of God. Is that what he said? No, he said, put your sword away. Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father has given me, shall I not drink it? Do you think Yeshua knew Peter was carrying a sword? Of course he did. They just told him, hey, we have two, right? So he knew there were two in the band, and he's Yeshua, so he knows everything. He knows he has a sword. And when he pulls it out, Yeshua is not shocked that Peter is committing violence. He's not happy with the result. He heals Malchus's ear. But he doesn't say, throw that sword down. We don't use weapons. He says, reholster it. Resheath your sword. You're resheathing it. It's like reholstering it. It's to keep it so you can have it ready so that you can use it again. This is where I was going to use my sword. I bought a training gladius, a Roman sword. It's this long. I was going to show it to y'all because my research is back about 2,000 years ago, this is the sword that was used all over Israel. So picture a sword this big. It's black polycarbonate, so you can beat people with it. But I was showing you the sword. It's what the Romans carried. Put yourself back in that time. The Israelites, the Jews in that time, were they in charge of the land? No, the Romans are in charge, right? They're underneath Roman control, and that was one of the things with the temple. The Romans go to the priests and the high priests and are like, look, you keep your people under control, and you can keep doing what you're doing, but do not make me come in there to solve things, right? We don't want rebellion in the Roman Empire, and so they let the church kind of handle it, the leadership. But you think they let the Israelites, the Jews, run around with swords? No. They're not going to let them do that. And yet, Yeshua says, hey, y'all need a sword. And if you don't have one, you need to sell a really important piece of clothing, a piece of your kit to get a sword. And they said, hey, we have two. And again, Yeshua didn't say, we don't carry swords. We're men of Yah. He's like, okay, two will work. Sword's this long. I was thinking, where did they get this sword? Where did Peter get the sword? When an occupying army is in the area, weapons get lost, weapons get stolen, skirmishes happen, fights happen, something's laid down, some little kid comes in and grabs it, runs down the street with it, it gets passed through the underground, through the guerrillas, and the next thing you know, the guerrillas got an AK. Like in modern times, right? Or an AR from the military or something like that. And so I think it was probably a dropped weapon, a stolen weapon. A Roman goes into, with some woman of the night or something, takes his stuff off, somebody comes by and grabs his stuff and runs away with it, and now it's amongst the people. And so there's this sword. I was also thinking it could be broken. Could have been a broken sword, it was discarded and used it, but they said they had two swords, so I don't think they had two broken swords. That makes sense? And the sword of the day was this long. The Romans carried it on their left side. It's a double-edged blade. They used it mostly for stabbing, but there's evidence they hacked arms off and stuff with it. And so it's a sword this big, and the Romans carried it on their left side. Probably Peter is carrying it on his left side, and I'm thinking if I got to hide this thing under a cloak, I'm not going to have it sticking back here. Here's my prop. Back here while I'm walking, it's going to be kind of vertical, right, on a chest thing underneath my robe, and I can just pull my sword out when I need it. He pulled that sword out and used it pretty quick, right? Do you want us to smite him? Pow! And he cut him. I was going to have somebody come up. I'm not. Am I okay moving right here? Picture Malchus standing right there. Picture me, if you will, as Peter. All right, so Peter pulls out his sword with his right hand, and he cuts off Malchus's right ear, the top of his ear. So picture that stroke. That's out of the sheath and cut, right? Cut. That's going to be important later. In Filipino martial arts, the system I studied, that's a number 8 strike. It's the 8th strike you learn. not the first strike. That's important. The sword that Peter's carrying, I submit to you, is equivalent today to an AK or an AR. Because it was the main weapon of the Roman legionnaire, was the sword. They had knives and backup stuff and clubs and, fists and stuff, but their main weapon was the sword. A soldier's main weapon, an infantryman's main weapon, is his rifle. And basically that's in the world, an AR-15 type weapon, M4, or an AK. So just keep that in mind. Being a subject of Rome, do you think Peter had a CCW? Concealed sword permit? No, he didn't have a concealed, and whoever had the other one, we don't know who had the other sword. They didn't have a permit. You think the Romans would have been a little bit upset if they caught them with a sword? You think Yeshua knew they were carrying swords and the Romans would be upset if they got caught with a sword? Start thinking about that now. I'd love it when I hear people say, well, I can't carry a gun to work. Do they make you go through a metal detector at work? Well, no, but I'll get fired if I carry a gun to work. No, you may get fired if you get caught carrying a gun to work. That's a huge difference in the way people think about things. I can't carry a gun to work. I think you can. You just fear the perceived consequences of getting caught more than you fear what could happen if somebody, workplace violence, comes in and decides they're killing everybody in this office. I mean, it's a scary world and it's getting scarier. So think about that. Look at the example. Yeshua didn't say, you don't have a permit for that. The Romans didn't give us one. Throw that down. He said, reholster it. Hide that thing. You don't want to get in trouble. Anybody here study Kenjutsu? It's like the samurai sword fighting with real swords, not with bamboo. I haven't, but I've read about it. And I've read about it for years, and for a while I thought ninjas were cool, and I thought samurais were cool, and Bushido. The samurais carried their sword on the left side with the blade up. A katana is kind of curved like that. It has the sharp edge on the outer part of the curve. And they carried it blade up. And the reason they did that is when they had a thing where they would draw their sword and strike straight down with it, because the edge is up. When I pull it out, and they go like a number 12 strike in FMA, and cut you asunder. And so if you wanted to do a cut, which they did, samurai had all kinds of cuts they would do. The samurais actually didn't do a whole lot of this, like you see in the movies if you watch samurai movies. It was very fast. When that sword came out, somebody was dying very quickly. They had another strike where they would take their sheath, because it was just tucked in a belt, right? It was just tucked in this little sash thing, and they would flip their sheath over with their hand and then draw their sword, so now it's edged down, and they would cut up. But that was a more technical strike than the number one strike they did, where they pulled it out and cut straight down like across the head or shoulder. They'd flip it over, pull it out, and cut up, and then continue fighting. Cutting up would hit a right ear, right? If you were aiming for that. This, to my mind, this strike is evidence of training of Peter. The world over, any culture, watch fights, watch melees, watch Antifa fighting Proud Boys in the street. The number one way humans strike each other is like this. It's the right hand, and it's from high to diagonal low. And that's where punches come from, and that's where hammers come down, and where bottles come down. It's called a number one strike in Filipino martial arts, because it's the most common strike that you're going to get. Has anybody here taken taekwondo, karate, or anything like that? One of the first blocks they teach you is like block punch, right? You're blocking with your left hand, you're punching with your right hand. Why? Because when a right-hander is coming at you, you're blocking with your left hand, because it's the most common strike you're going to get. If you walk down the street and somebody's going to punch you, they're probably going to punch you with their right hand up high. Well, that's the first strike you learn with the sword. You learn up high to down, because it's the most natural. This is almost the opposite. The diagonal of number 1 is this way. The diagonal of number 8 is this way. If you're going to cut off the ear, you're coming up. It's like backhanding somebody. It's like karate chopping somebody coming up. Everybody wants to do this. You should feel in yourself, I'm more comfortable hitting this way than I am hitting this way. And yet that's how Peter struck this guy. Peter didn't pull out his sword and then cut. He would have cut his left ear. Does that make sense? We're going to go back to tie it together. Let's go to Genesis chapter 14. Are we okay? Is this boring yet? Okay. Genesis chapter 14. I think we're going to start around verse 8, but let me get there. Genesis 14, verse 8. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar. And they joined battle with them in the vale, the valley of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, the king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Eleasar, 4 kings with 5. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. All right, so there's a big battle. And they say kings. You know what kings would more so equate with today? Warlords. Cartel leaders, big gang leaders. That's what's kings. It's not like Game of Thrones where the guy had a throne and a castle and things. They were just big warlords, and they had an army, some of them very big, some of them not so big. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals, and they went their way. So this is a raid, right? There's a big fight. There's 4 against 5 groups of guys, and they just raid Sodom and Gomorrah, and they take everything. Anybody here a prepper? Okay, not as many as there should be, quite frankly. Preppers, they first start thinking, okay, I need to prepare for me and mine because bad times are coming, because I read Mark 13 and I can see what's happening. And so I need to get food and I need to get supplies, and the power may go out. I got to have refuge medical gear because, stuff happens in emergencies. And preppers start gathering gear, and then they start thinking, holy crap. There's people out there that may want to steal my stuff. And so then they get guns and ammo, and they start thinking about that. And then fantasy planning, books are written about it. I get this table of guys right there. Are you guys with me? All right, we're not Torah-keeping good guys now. We're just dudes. We're going to go take their shit, right? We're going to go get their stuff. You guys ready? All right, get warmed up. Let's go. Well, that's what they did. They went to Sodom and Gomorrah, and they just took everything. They're taking, let's take this, let's take that. And so just put that in context. 12, and they took Lot. They kidnapped Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and they departed. And there came one that had escaped from this chaos, and he told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, and these were confederates with Abram. Okay, it's just setting the stage, who's on whose side. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, Abram, a man of Yah, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and he pursued them unto Dan. We're going to come back to this. We're going to finish. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and he smote them, and he pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus, and he brought back all the goods, and he also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and his women also, and the people. So there's war, there's warlords, there's raiding going on. It's a world without rule of law. in this area. It's might makes right. You know, the strong guys are prevailing. The strong man is prevailing. And in that thing, Lot gets taken. Abram gets the word. Hey, Lot's been taken, man. They sacked Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, they took him and they took all his stuff. And go back up to 14. He armed his trained servants. Does it say trained in the scriptures? How do you train your guys? Did he say, all right, get together. I'm going to show you guys how to do some tactics because we're going out tonight to do something? No. They had spent time training these guys. Now, this is not his full-time militia security force Praetorian Guard. They've got jobs that they do for Abram. You know, your job is to milk the goats, and your job is to herd them over there, and I need you to build fencing. But by the way, every Sunday, they didn't have Sunday, every first day, we're going to get together and we're going to do some training for a couple hours. First thing I'm going to show you guys is how to use a sword. Right? Here's how you properly wield a sword. Here's how you use a spear. Here's how we stand in formation. Here's how we march to get somewhere. Here's how you walk quietly. Abram trained guys. How many guys? 318. At least 318. He took 318 guys with him. They were trained. It also says he had armed them. He armed his trained servants. So he either, when they became his servants, gave them arms, but to me it looks like he's got servants and he has an arms room. You know, sure, it's spears and swords and stuff. And he's like, all right, guys, come here. Everybody grab one. Doom, doom, doom. All right, line up. Let's go. Born in his own house. It means he took responsibility for it. He thought ahead. He trained them. Did Abram actually train them? I don't know. I don't think so. He probably had, you know, his head military guy, and he said, hey, get these guys trained up. He probably had an armorer, you know, to keep the spears sharp and keep them stored for when we need them and stuff. But the whole point was Abram was ready for combat, and his men were trained for combat. And then we get into, he pursued them unto Dan, and then he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and he smote them. Anybody here in the infantry, Marines, or Army infantry or something? Night operations are inherently much more difficult than day operations. Would you agree? They are. We fight at night, right? Because that's when but that's because the enemy can't fight at night very good, because you can't see your guys, you can't hear your guys, you don't know what you're dealing with. Not only did he attack at night, and we're not going to get into tactics now, but you may do a more complex attack or operation in the daytime than you would at night. You got to kind of keep it simple, stupid, at night, so your guys don't end up shooting each other, getting lost, going the wrong way or whatever. He divides his force into two elements. That makes it more difficult, what he's doing. That means there's more training involved in this time of chaos that we read about in Mark 13, that Yeshua said, watch, be ready. If the strong man had known that somebody was going to break into his house, he would be ready. There's somebody going to break into your house, metaphorically speaking, sometime perhaps soon. Are you ready to defend your house? Are you ready to take action? Have you done the steps to get with others? Because 5 or 6 guys will do a lot better, trained guys, than 1 or 2 guys. Think about that. Watch. Keep watch. We read about watches in the second watch and the third watch, just like all around midnight time frame. Gang, you cannot stay up all night, every night, and tend your peas and work on your goats and your sheep, which you should all be thinking about doing, by yourself. You're going to need people. I'm going to need Jody to be awake from 10 to 12 so I can be awake from 12 to 2 so TJ can be awake from 2 to 4. You need people. And you need to be trained, and you need to practice this stuff. And that's just an aside. They knew tactics. They knew tactics. I tell people on my Patreon channel, they're like, well, how do I learn tactics? I'm like, man, you need to find an infantryman. You need to find a Marine or an Army infantryman who served, I don't care what rank they were, it could be a PFC. He knows so much more than you do about tactics from reading books and watching YouTube videos. He knows more than you do, and get him to train your people. I'm telling you, you need to do that. You need to get trained in basic tactics, because I was just telling a story today about a biker gang that I had an interaction with, and these boys were trained. They were kind of scary. They really were. And their leader was a Vietnam vet, Ranger. He trained his guys. You will be coming against trained guys. They're not all going to be fat suburban dads in their shorts with their 12-gauge shotgun and a 32-inch barrel that are coming. So you got to watch. What I say unto you, I say unto you all, watch. Let's get some lessons out of this so far. Anyone doesn't have a sword, sell his cloak and buy one. We have two. The first lesson, men. I did a talk last year on your duties as a man. And your two main duties are what? Protect and provide. That's your job for the family. We're not going there today. That would be rebuking for some people. Your job is to protect your family and to provide for your family. Part of that is you have to have a sword. I'm not talking like my gladius. I'm talking you need a real rifle or a real handgun. You need one. Some of you here don't have one. You need one. You might have to sacrifice financially to get one. A cloak was a very important piece of personal gear. Relatively expensive compared to the sandals and the man dress that they were wearing. You may have to sell something to buy yourself a sword. You don't need a closet full of swords. Two will suffice. I submit a rifle, a semi-automatic magazine-fed rifle, think AR, it's America's rifle, and a handgun. You got to have them. They're expensive. I mean, relatively speaking, for a chunk of metal and plastic, they're expensive. Again, you may have to sacrifice, but two is enough. Second lesson, you have to carry your sword. You have to have it. Picture the scene. They had a Passover, I think, type meal. Then Yeshua and his pizzos, they retired to the garden to pray and to just relax and to enjoy the night air. They weren't expecting trouble. Yeshua was. Yeshua knew exactly what was coming. But the guys were like, hey, we're partying. Let's all go out to the Garden of Gethsemane. And yet they had a sword, right? They had two swords. You need to carry all the time. We already talked about it. Concealed carry permit. I think to the extent possible, you should all obey the law. I think you should. If you can get a concealed carry permit and one is required to carry concealed where you live, you should get a concealed carry permit. But whether you can do that or not, you still have a duty to protect, regardless of that. So I'm not going to sit here on video and say, you need to carry whether you have one or not, even if that's illegal. You have a duty to protect. Peter carried a sword. I guarantee you Peter was not allowed to carry a sword. So you have this sword. You're carrying this sword. Cool. That is where most gun carriers in America are. I got my Glock. I carry it 24/7, PJ. Awesome. Do you train with it? I went to the range 4 months ago and I shot some cardboard, missed most of it. Dude, that's not training. That is not training. You need to train with your sword. We're going to get to that. And then finally, and I think we're pretty good here. I've talked to a lot of y'all. You are not the standard Yeshua following, Jesus following crowd of men. But you have to take this on board. You have to be prepared to kill. Thou shalt not kill. That's not what it means. If you actually translate that correctly, it's thou shalt not what? Murder. Do murder. There's a difference. War is not murder. Defending your life is not murder. Defending this poor defenseless woman who I don't even know who she is not murder. Not in accordance of the eyes of the Father. Lord, Master, shall we smite them? He didn't wait for an answer. Peter was not, I've heard pastors say this. They say the stupidest things. They were just carrying a little butter knife. No, they weren't. This was a defensive tool that he was carrying. And shall we smite them? Shall we kill them? Strike. Well, he was just aiming at his ear. You can't aim at an ear. I saw that with the Donald Trump attempted assassination. People said, oh, it's all a setup. They just shot him in the ear to make him a martyr. I'm a pretty good rifle shot. I wouldn't take that bet. Just nick his ear while he's talking and moving. No, they were trying to kill him. Peter was trying to kill Malchus. Malchus jerked or something out of the way at the last second. He just sliced his ear, just like Trump went to look at a slide or something behind him and hit his ear. You have to be prepared to kill. And I'm telling you, I've trained men to kill. I see in my daily walk a lot of bravado. It's not that. You have to really work this out through your psyche. Which is unfortunate, but you have to. We'll go deeper? Yeah. All right, so you got to have a sword. 2's enough. You don't need a closet full of sword. What kind of sword? I think in this North American continent, you need an AR and you need a semi-automatic handgun that holds, 15-ish rounds. Well, I have my .357. Okay, whatever, man. But that's what I think you should have. If we lived somewhere else, I'd say have an AK. If we lived Africa, South America, Asia, but we don't. We live here. So you should have an M4 type, I call it M4gery, an AR type weapon. You should have several magazines for it. This is where the practical's coming. This is not spiritual, this is practical. You need this. My father, he's militia, survivalist. Those guys are stupid. I'm like, Dad, you're a survivalist. It's like, no, I'm not. Those people are weird. I'm like, Dad, you have a trailer packed and ready to go 24/7. It's stocked with food and everything you need to go off into the mountains. Well, that's just so if I decide to go camping or go hunting, we have it. He used that when they had fires in Oregon. They were given like 30 minutes to get out. He and his wife grabbed some things, threw it in his Class C camper, and they drove away, parked at a friend's house. Lived there for a couple weeks. Then he bought My Patriot Supply food. He bought the cases of food. He goes, well, things are just going. Then he called me, my dad, who has, he's a hunter. He's got a couple rifles and shotguns and stuff like that. He said, Joey, I think I want an M4. What kind do I need? So I told him. He goes, how many magazines do I need? I told him, get 20. You don't need 20, but get 20. Here's a deal on Magpul magazines. They're cheap. They're $9 a piece or something. He sees the writing on the wall, and he's not a prepper, according to him, and he's not a weird survivalist or something. But I think you need an M4. I think you need some kind of handgun. Everybody loves to argue for their gun. Whatever, man. You need some. Carry a sword. It's one of the things I told you need to do. Okay, well, how do you carry a sword? How many people here do carry pretty much most of the time? Okay, put your hands down. Of those who put your hands up, how many of you have more than one holster for your handgun? Right? It's like you buy a holster and it's like, this isn't quite right. So you buy another holster and that ain't right. And then you have this drawer of holsters and you're like, well, I can't give them away. I paid $60 for each one of them and no. And you end up with all these dang holsters, right? Most people I know do. I do. I've got lots of holsters that I don't use. I should just give them away. Give them to my grandkids and let them play with them or something. But you're going to need a holster for your pistol, and I submit you need to be ready to carry that thing concealed, whether you do or not. Most of the time on Shofar Mountain, I don't carry concealed, but it's in a flap holster because I'm chainsawing and digging and stuff like that. It's not a speed holster, but I can see things coming on Shofar Mountain. But you need a concealed carry type holster. For your rifle, you need a sling. You need a sling on your rifle because you may be carrying it a long time. You may be carrying it all day. If raiders are in the area, what's his name? He's in Oregon. He's a shooter. Clint Smith. Clint Smith said, a handgun is to fight your way back to the rifle you should not have set down in the first place. When it's we had several infantrymen here. They will tell you they're in the field for 2 weeks at a time. You never get more than an arm's reach away from your rifle, ever. That's your rifle, man. That's your life. That's your sword. CCW, we talked about that. My personal opinion is if you need a CCW to carry where you are, some states still require one, you should have one. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. If he wants you to have one, have one. It doesn't matter. But you should carry. I'll leave that at that. Train with your sword. Okay, well, that sounds good. Train with your sword. I go to the range, every now and then. I go with my buddies and we shoot 4 boxes of ammo. We make lots of noise. We have so many holes on the target, we don't even know where we hit it, and I feel pretty good. And I love that smell of cordite. Yeah, I'm trained. No. The way you need to get trained, you're going to have somebody help you. The first thing when you get a handgun, I don't think it should be a law, but I think it should be like peer pressure. You should go get training on how to safely handle a pistol. A pistol is actually more dangerous than a rifle as far as mistakes go. If I have a rifle in my hand and I turn this way, it's big. But I've seen people with pistols on the range turn their wrists like this and they're looking at something on their gun and they're pointing it at 5 guys on the range down here. Or they shoot it and then they're like doing this. Or they shoot it and they let it hang down here. And it's like that muzzle kills. And so you have to, and I'm talking to those of you who haven't had, you think, oh, I know how to shoot a pistol. I've been doing it since I was 6. You got to learn the first thing is the basics. You have to learn the 4 rules of firearm safety. We do it at Shofar Mountain before we shoot. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Don't point your weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. All guns are always loaded. We treat all guns as if they're loaded. And be sure of your target and what's around it and behind it. Everybody in Shofar Mountain carries a firearm all the time. They all come to church with guns. I had a talk with my congregation not that long ago, and I said, if anything happens, most of you cannot pull a gun. Unless I have told you personally, you can pull your gun out, you cannot do it. Because picture somebody in the middle here standing up and going, Allah Akbar, I'm going to start shooting people. And everybody here with a gun starts shooting. Are all y'all going to be sitting still while that happens? No. There's going to be chaos. And there's going to be moving. And a little girl's going to get in the way. And there's going to be a little girl behind it. And I don't want somebody go, bang, 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 bang. And shoot 6 shofarians and miss the bad guy every single time. We do not rise to the level of our expectation. We default to the level of our training and experience. And so I now make people pass a test to respond. I'm not going to tell them they can't carry. But everybody should be able to pass that test. So you have to train in the basics, and that one just came from know your target and what's around and beyond it. That's a tough target, hitting somebody just right here in the middle when people are moving. Once you master the basics, then you learn how to properly shoot your handgun. This is how you hold it. This is how you stand. This is how you line up the sights. It's amazing the number of people that carry a gun. I teach classes, mostly the Shofarians now, and I say for this class, you have to first shot hit a paper plate at 10 yards. If you can't do that, first thing we're going to do, I'm sending you home. Because we can't go beyond that if you can't do that. I have had people show up at training, here to that wall, and miss a paper plate. I'm like, okay, you're not a bad person, but you are not ready to go to the next level. And so many Americans want to cheat, and they want to shoot like heck, and I want to learn how to go around corners, and I want to learn how to do a CQB takedown, and they can't hit a target 10 yards away the size of a paper plate, which is huge. So you have to learn the basics. You have to learn to crawl before you start sprinting. Does that make sense? I mean, it makes sense, but people don't do it. And they'll go to the range and they'll waste money and bullets going bang, 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 bang. And it's like, dude, why don't you practice just hitting what you're aiming at? So you need to build from that. And then once you start building on your skill set, there's a lot to do. I'm going to go over some things you should do. but you have to make your training increasingly tougher, increasingly more realistic. There's nothing realistic about sitting at a table, resting your hands on a sandbag, and shooting a bullseye target at 10 yards. Okay, you need to do that first. You need to know how to do that. You need to be able to hit doing that before you can hit standing up. You need to be able to hit standing up before you can hit walking. Does that make sense? Yeah. So don't waste your money, don't waste your time. Build in increments, in blocks. Going deeper on the mindset. You need to be prepared to kill with your sword. This requires deep reflection on your part. I teach women self-defense because I don't like seeing defenseless women. I don't like seeing women get injured. The hardest thing to get through to women, I start out, the first thing I tell them in the women's self-defense class, because it goes with this talk, is despite everything I'm going to teach you today, I want you to get a gun and I want you to carry it all the time and I want you to be trained in how to use it. Now, let's set that aside. You don't have a gun. Then I tell them, you are a child of Yah. No one has any right to molest you or disturb you or physically harm you. Women and some men have the psychology, well, I don't want to hurt them. They started this dance. You need to walk away from the dance, and to do that, I teach these women to be violent, and they don't want to be violent. They're nurturers. And so you have to get them through that. You have to do it very delicately with a woman, or they shut down on you. Well, for men, the average guy walks around like, protector, provider, me. But when it comes to it, they really, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, they really don't want to go there. I watch all these cop videos, cops arresting people and stuff. I think I'm subscribed to all of them. It slays me, the number of police officers who walk up to a car and they're like, it's come to the point, say, all right, get out of the car. The person doesn't. Cop says, get out of the car. I'm ordering you, get out of the car. They don't. All right, I'm not going to tell you again, get out of the car. Hey, get out of the car. I count, sometimes I say it 16, 20 times, get out of the car. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? You have a gun, you have a badge, you have the lawful authority to pull them out of the car. Why are you telling them? And I'm going to be talking about some of y'all right now. I think I figured out why. They, like 75% of American men, grew up in a house without a father. They grew up in a house with a mother trying to raise a boy, which goes back to last year's talk. And mothers default to, Johnny, I mean it. I'm not telling you again, Johnny, stop doing that. Johnny, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2. Johnny, don't do that. And that's what they default to. They're real dudes. They've been raised in this environment. They don't want to go hands-on. They don't want to commit violence. And also they'll get sued if it's the wrong race that they're doing it to, or it's a woman, or whatever. But there is that too. But they just don't want to go there. You have to get your mind ready, because here's the deal. If you're going against a criminal, a real criminal, they're not going to hesitate. That's one of the things I tell people. Criminals have an ability. This is not the first time they've robbed somebody, raped somebody, murdered somebody, typically speaking. They can go from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour like that, where we want to bust up, chest up, push people, yell, blah, blah, blah. You're dead by then. You have to develop a combat mindset. Okay, how do you do that? Man, that's tough. That's tough at this age. I would suggest, and we're going to talk about this later, realistic martial arts training. Get hit. Hit and get hit. Do boxing, do MMA, go take Muay Thai. Learn to be comfortable with violence. Learn not to melt down when you're in the presence of violence. Think about Abraham. Think about Joshua. Joshua, what a guy. They went in and just slaughtered people. I mean, they did, right? All right, I'm losing you guys. I can see it in your eyes. All right, I went over the 4 rules of safety. Safe techniques, you should know these. Rhetorical question. Do y'all know what flagging is with your weapon? It's pointing your muzzle at anybody for any reason. You don't do that. If TJ says, hey, PJ, I want to come back to my cabin. I want to see your handgun. I don't pull it out and point it at him and go, here you go, man. Well, there's a way to pass somebody a pistol. Like if you're standing right in front of me, it's like my gun's coming out. You don't get to do this with it. You don't get to do this with it because there's somebody over there. You have to practice that. Same thing with a rifle. And so you don't want to flag people. You have to train yourself to doing that. You have to have proper gear. I took a class one time, some good-hearted, anybody here shoot IPSC or IDPA? Combat Handgun Competition? Well, they had one in Kansas City. And there was Team Kansas, and there were a bunch of dudes that were my age now that were shooting, and they traveled all over the country, and they all shot very, very well. And they said, hey, we want to do something for the Army. We were getting ready to start the war in Afghanistan, or we had just started it, and we knew that every soldier was going to go there. And at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas City area, there's a school where all Army majors go to. And they're like, we're going to do a free class 3 weeks long for Army majors so they can actually learn how to use that handgun that the Army gives them. Because believe it or not, the Army doesn't teach a military intelligence guy how to really use his handgun. They just give him one, basically. And so they start doing this training. They wanted me to help them, so I'm helping them do it. And this one guy's like, all right, we're going to teach room clearing. And then we're going to do it on the next training session. We're going to do 2-man room clearing opposing corners, which if you don't know what that is, it's okay. But it's basically we're in this room and I'm on that corner and you're in that corner and there's bad guys in between us. They wanted to do it live with targets. I said, you cannot do this. They're like, oh yeah, we showed them, we whiteboarded it, we showed them, we walked it with blanks. I said, in the Army, before we do live fire inner room training, we spend about a month getting ready for it every day. We talk about it on the board like you did, and then we start walking it out. We don't even have guns. We're just walking it out over and over and over. And then we're doing it with plastic guns, and there's steely-eyed instructors. And if you flag somebody, you're in a lot of trouble. And then we just slowly, but they wanted to do it in one weekend. And then I said, you got guys here wearing holsters, and that's the point of this story, that are like these little floppy nylon $10 holsters, and we've got guys missing their holster when they put it in. We have guys today that are loading their gun, and they're pointing their pistol at people while they're doing it, and you want to have them do dynamic room clearing with live ammo? I said, you can't do it. They said, we're doing it. I said, I'm done helping you. I won't be there to do this training. I'm not going to be part of a disaster that's going to happen. They backed down after that. We did it with airsoft. You need proper gear. But here's the thing. Americans equate gear with skill. Oh, CAG uses this optic on their rifle, so I got this optic. So now I'm not quite as good as CAG, but I'm pretty damn good. No, you're not. Oh, look at that sling. That's a $50 VTAG special sling, man. That's the sling. That's worse when people say that's the sling you need. That's the magazine you need. That's the optic you need. This is the little Google on the front of your. There's a poster out there, M4. It's the M4 SOP mod, which comes with a lot of Gugas with it in the military. M4, Barbies for men. Oh, look, I'm going to put the blue shoes on. I'm going to put the yellow dress on. I want to put her in this hat. I want to put this thing on the side. I want to put this light on. I want to do... Gang, learn how to shoot your rifle. Spend the money on ammo before you start buying Gugas. The rifle as you buy it is fine. Are there things you can add? Yes, you absolutely need to add a light. You need to do this. Actually, you don't absolutely have to do anything except learn how to shoot your rifle first, and it'll come. Do not equate gear with skill, because it's not. I don't care what you dress up like. It doesn't make you good. I have a thing for those of you who don't watch my videos. I say it on my videos fairly often. There's a lot of guys out there that look at pictures online of like SEAL Team 6. This is a picture of SEAL Team 6 actually in operation. Probably is. Here's a picture of Delta Force. Oh, what shirt is that? What boots are those? What chest rig is that? What is that? And then they go buy all that stuff for a whole lot of money. And I say, you know what? You could do that with all your buddies. You could get like 10 of your buddies together. You could buy all that stuff. And 2 Delta guys dressed, who's in a flannel shirt? Dressed in a flannel shirt and a pair of Wranglers with 30-30s and a pocket full of shells will eat your lunch. It's not about the gun. It's not about the cool camo and the cool, it's about training. So you need gear, you need proper gear. Don't buy cheap gear. Don't buy a floppy $5 holster for your handgun, but you don't need a $400 holster either. All right, here's some drills that you need to be able to do. Does anybody here know what the dot drill is or the circle drill is? Basically, you take a piece of paper, piece of wood, whatever you want to do, and you paint circles on it. You can buy targets that are called the dot drill, like the dot torture. Dun, 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 dun. And they're all close together, about this big. You practice shooting at the circle from about 7 yards. You start just holding the pistol in your hand, and you're going to put 3 rounds in the first dot. It's actually kind of difficult. You have to focus on what you're doing to hit a dot this big at 7 yards. Once you're good at that, we're going to draw and shoot and hit a dot. Gang, if you're missing the dot, don't go to the one where you draw and shoot 2 dots twice. You're missing the dot on this task. You have to build in blocks, and you have to get good at what you're doing. And people get frustrated, and they just want to shoot their gun, they want to make noise, and they're just wasting ammo. Don't waste your ammo. You have limited time, you have limited money, and you don't want to waste it. But the dot drill is good. You can look it up online. You should write dot drill. The next drill, and this is after you've learned to safely handle your firearm, and if you need training in that, you've gotten training on that. But now I've got a gun, I'm going to the range, I don't know what I'm going to do. You're standing in front of the target, 7 to 10 yards. Most handgun encounters are closer than that. So why are you standing at 7 to 10 yards? Because it makes you focus on your sights more. It makes you focus on the basics more. This is after you already can stand there with your gun and hit the target every time you pull the trigger, right? I'm just standing here and I hit it. Once you can do that, you practice drawing and shooting 1 round. You have to have a little bit of instruction on how to properly draw. I'm not going to teach you that today, but you have to get instruction on how to draw your firearm. It's not just grabbing it out of your holster and shooting it. There is a technique and a way to properly do it. Get training on that. You can actually find that online and practice with your unloaded gun. But the first drill you want to do is draw and shoot 1. Bang. If you have a rifle, we call it an up drill. You're standing there with your rifle, and somebody, you can say it to yourself, up, bring it up and shoot the target. And you're aiming for about 1 second. What size target do I tell people to shoot at? Paper plate. You know the cheap paper plates, you get 100 of them for $3? That's what you should shoot at, other than the dot drill. They're cheap. They cost nothing. They're this big, right? At whatever range. I tell people when you're shooting a paper plate, if you're missing the plate, slow down. Apply the fundamentals. It doesn't do any good to miss a target this big. I don't care if it's at 100 yards or 3 yards. If you're shooting the center out of the paper plate, what do I say? Speed up. We're not shooting precision, shooting the eyeball. You should be able to do that on your dot drill, but for combat shooting, if you can hit a paper plate at any range, you're good. So if you're shooting the center out of the paper plate, you can speed up. If you're missing it, you need to slow down. So the 1-up drill or the draw and shoot 1. The next one, your paper plate target, whether it's a rifle or a pistol, draw and shoot 2. If it's your rifle, come up and go. If it's your pistol, draw and go bang, bang. Only hits count. If you miss, you're screwing up. Don't go miss again right away. Slow down and go, all right, how did I miss that? All right, I'm going to do this one excruciatingly slow. Bang, bang. Okay, you hit the target. You cannot miss fast enough. Does that make sense? Only hits count. We do a competition at Shofar Mountain every year for the whole tribe who wants to do it, and only hits count. You can be the slowest guy there, and if you get the most hits, you win, because I'm emphasizing accuracy with that. So you draw and shot 1, or you up and shot 1, you draw and shoot 2. The next drill that you do, that you need to progress to, and you need to be really good at these drills, but most of you are not. They sound simple. They are. 2 targets, make them at least this far apart. Draw and shoot one, shoot one. Or up, bang, bang. It does no good shooting at 2 targets if you can't hit 1 target twice. That's why we do the twice first. Now we're shooting at 2 targets. After you get good at that, we have 2 targets, we shoot each target twice. This is where guys argue tactics. Do I shoot the first target twice, bang, bang, and the second target twice, bang, bang? Or does everyone get first before anyone gets dessert? Bang, 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 bang. Whatever, man. Shoot each target twice. Once you get to that point, there's other drills. Anybody know what a failure to stop or a Mozambique drill is? Not very many, so good. So I'll explain it to you. Mozambique drill is you draw, you shoot 2, bang, bang, and you realize the person didn't fall down. They're still in your sights because they probably have body armor on. Body armor is very popular now. Got a big jacket on, you shoot him twice, and he goes, ooh! But he's standing there. Next shot is right here. So it's 1, 2, 1. Draw, 1, 2, 1. The 1 is a 3x5 card. It's not a paper plate. So you put a paper plate, you put a 3x5 card, draw, bang, bang, bang. That's a hard drill. Guys who are really good just are amazing. They go like bang, bang, bang. I can't do that, but you can do it better than you can now. Once you get those basic drills down, that's really enough for your stationary shooting. Life's not stationary. And life isn't always, oh, it's raining today, I guess we'll cancel range day. You need to start shooting in the rain. You need to start shooting when it's 107 degrees outside. You need to start shooting when it's 5 degrees outside and your hands are frozen. We did a drill, we did training one time where it was cold for us. And so we're all standing there in gloves, and then we all take our gloves off when it's our turn to shoot, right? But if you're walking to Walmart across the parking lot and it's 7 degrees, you've got your gloves on. So we were practicing very safely drawing and shooting with our gloves on. You have to go really slow. You have to think about what you're doing before you do it. We wear thin gloves so we can grab our gun, but most people don't. Thin gloves aren't warm. When you're out shoveling snow and cleaning your car off and stuff like that, you've got real gloves on, usually. Different guys had different techniques, but I had never done this in the military. What I ended up with for my technique by practicing this is I'm concealed, it's cold, I have my gloves on, ready, shoot, pull my glove off, draw and shoot. And I just made that part of my draw stroke. Other people did other things. But the way you know that is by doing it and practicing it and figuring out what you want to do. So what I'm saying is you have to shoot in all weather conditions. Pouring rain. Go out and shoot. Your gun's not going to melt. And then you have to learn how to move. You have to learn how to shoot from here, run over there, shoot from here, run over there, run back there, run over there in a safe manner with your gun, not pointing at everybody in the parking lot while you're doing it. You have to learn how to shoot using cover. What is cover, how to shoot from high cover, low cover, ground cover, and that's probably going to require deliberation on your part to learn how to do that, but you need to learn how to shoot from different cover because it makes no sense. One of you guys and I are in a gunfight like the OK Saloon, and I'm just standing here looking at you, shooting at you. That's dumb, right? That's how I'm going to get shot, doing that. So those are kind of the steps you have to do. Various shooting positions. You're not just standing. You have to shoot from where you're sitting in a chair. Take a chair and a table out to the range and shoot. If that's the target array right there, set it, and your bedroom has your computer desk and the door to your bedroom is right there. Set up the range like that so you have to draw from your computer desk and shoot. Practice these things. I'm in my car. How many people here have shot on a range from a vehicle? Good. Good. There's techniques involved in that, right? Clearing that steering wheel and shooting and going through the front windshield and making a little hole and blasting through that hole. There's techniques to that. Gang, you need to learn how to do that. Because you don't get to say, TJ's a bad guy. And he's like, PJ, I'm coming after you, man. We're going to fight. Okay, hold on. Can we do it tomorrow? The weather's going to be good. I want to be standing in the clear parking lot. Stop at 10 yards. No, come closer. Right? No, you got to be ready for everything. You have to train. Peter was trained. Abraham's men were trained. It requires effort on your part. It requires some money. It doesn't require nearly as much as people think. Remember how I told you need people? You need to learn tactics. You're going to have to go to a school for this or find somebody who knows tactics. You're going to have to learn teamwork. How do TJ and I, when something happens, move out that door and over to that cabin because a woman is screaming and she needs assistance? How do we move across that parking lot together? How do we cover each other? I'm covering, go. He moves, I got it, go. Boom, boom, boom. How do you do that? You're not going to figure it out in the moment. You have to practice this stuff with rifles, with handguns, whatever. Well, that's starting to sound like militia training. Most militia training is a joke. It's a joke. You need to learn how to move in a 2-man unit. You need to learn how to move in a 5-man unit. You need to learn how to move in 2 5-man units or 2 3-man units. That's where you need to go find an infantryman. Even if he's not your infantryman, you can throw some money at him or beer or whatever and have him come train you. Because there's real tactics to consider. And the story I told earlier, which I'm not going to tell here, that motorcycle club that I had an interaction with, they had small unit tactics that were impressive. It's like, whew, these guys have trained. We have a saying in the military, shoot, move, communicate, sustain. Yep. Even if it's you and your wife. Have you and your wife practiced, you hear your kids screaming in the middle of the night and something's going on in the bedroom. And then you hear something in the living room at the same time. Perhaps multiple intruders, perhaps one of them's in your kid's room. What do you do? How do you solve that problem? Because if you just run blindly to your kid's room, what you want to do, who's taking care of the guy in the living room? How are you moving down that hallway? What is your wife's job? Sitting there screaming in the bedroom? Ah! No, you need to have a job. I have 2 airsoft Glock pistols. My wife and I have practiced doing things in our house since I've had them, every house we move to. We take turns playing the bad guy. We take turns, we set up targets. All right, you go set up the little silhouette targets in the house. It's kind of fun to do. It's kind of weird. All right, you ready? Go. And then we go do things. If you don't practice this stuff, you will not rise to the level of your expectation. You'll default to your level of no training. And you could be against people. We always underestimate our enemy. We always set up our fictional enemy. We always set up our fictional survival scenario to what we're prepared for. Well, the electricity could go out for 5 days. What would we do? Well, we got solar. We don't really care. We don't talk about what would happen if the house burned down and my leg gets chopped off. Oh, that sucks. Well, maybe you should think about that and war game that a little bit and think about it. So you need to learn how to shoot, move, communicate, and sustain. Once you have a group can be you and your spouse. How do you communicate? Again, some training is involved here. You need to get some training, but how do you communicate with each other? If you have 3 guys, it's a 3-man security team. How do we communicate with each other? Well, we have cool little throat mics. Cool, what happens when they don't work in the middle of an op? How do we seamlessly transition to communicating with each other? If you practice this stuff, it starts coming natural, doesn't it, TJ? Yes, sir. Yeah, it just gets easy. But it's not easy in the beginning. It's a cluster when things go wrong. You have to do training events where, okay, you're the leader of this event. You're the leader of this squad, and your job is to go do this thing. All right, you ready? We got targets out there, and you guys are going to do this. All right, ready, go. 30 seconds into it, I say, you're dead. Fall down, shut up. What do his 4 guys do? So you let them flounder around. You let it not go right. Then you stop. All right, everybody stop. Come here. Let's talk about this. What could we have done? What should we have done? And then you get better, and then, yeah, forbid, you fall in a hole, or whatever. It's like your guys can do what they need to do. But you have to practice this stuff. Do you think Abraham's men knew how to do that? They did, because they divided the forces at night and they attacked the enemy at night. These guys knew what to do. I'm telling you, they had subgroup leaders. They had at least 2, and I bet you they had more, because if you look at the history of fighting, they break men into 10s. Moshe did that. Men into 10s, men into 50s, men into 100s. And there's leaders at each one of those levels. So you need to get that training. Refuge. How many people here have taken refuge responder like 1, 2, and 3? Good. I'm not saying this because, TJ's my brother and our pastor and all that and runs refuge. You need to take that training. That is really, really good training. If you can swing that training, I encourage you to do it because it is very difficult to get training where realistic casualty play is involved. It's a scenario and all of a sudden something happens and you got to deal with it and there's chaos going on. Well, when you're doing your tactical training, you need to inject chaos. He has a sucking chest wound. What do you do? Well, I would expose. No, do it. Okay, now what are you going to do? Well, we would carry him to the casualty collection point. I'm waiting. Sounds easy, right? Oh, 2 guys will make a litter. We'll carry him. You and me. You're a big guy. Let's go. Dude, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. How do you do that tactically? Bad guys don't say, okay, you have a casualty. We'll stop trying to get you. The only way you learn that is by doing it. Does it start sounding like time? It is. You're going to have to invest time. But if you want to make it through what's coming, you're supposed to watch. You're supposed to understand what's coming and be prepared. If the strong man knew that the bad guy was going to break, if the master of the home knew that strong man was going to break into his house, he'd be ready. Well, being ready isn't, I see you, go away. You're going to have to respond. Coming back, because people always forget. Only hits count. Only hits count. If you're missing, you're not applying the fundamentals. The reason I have people in my Viking Pistol 1 class have to hit a target at 10 meters is that one of the very first things we do is teach them how to draw and shoot one. And they miss. I'm like, all right, stop what you're doing. Point your gun at that target, shoot it right in the middle of that target. Right in the middle of the target. All right, you can hit the middle of the target. Now, reholster. Now draw and shoot and hit the middle of the target. Go as slowly as you need to go to hit that target. Speed comes. How many people here took martial arts in their life? Not enough. You learn how to punch in whatever style it is. And it's slow at first. And you don't do it fast at first. And then speed just comes. And it happens. But you have to do it correctly. Focus on the basics and then build in blocks. Okay, how far do you need to be able to shoot? That's a rhetorical question. How far do you need to be able to shoot? To the capability of your weapon. You should be able to hit a human. We're talking about shooting humans here, not coyotes. You should be able to hit a human-sized target at 50 yards with your handgun. The vast majority of people who carry a handgun cannot do that. You should be able to do that. You probably cannot hit a paper plate at 50 yards with your handgun, but you should be able to hit a silhouette. How far should you be able to shoot with your rifle? Most people in America are shooting their rifles at like 50 to 100 yards. Open sights on the average AR-15, no red dot, no nothing. 400 yards. No problem. Bang. You should be able to do that. This is your goal. I want to be able to shoot that far with my firearm. You have to practice fast shooting up close because we don't have time to go, you got to get that hit. But in me shooting at Heath, which I'd never do, brother, and missing and shooting all around him, it's not saving me when he goes, I'm done. Only hits count. You can't miss fast enough. All right, so we talked about skill set, talked about tool set. What kind of firearms you need? You just need a minimum of gear. Mindset, be prepared to kill, deal with the unexpected. Out of those three, what's the most important? Skill set, mindset, tool set. Mindset. Absolutely. The body can't go where the mind hasn't been. But it's true. Your mindset has to be right. You have to be focused. You have to know what you want to accomplish before you do it. You must cultivate, we're going to a slightly different tactic. You must cultivate, you must nurture the warrior mindset. I've said it on my videos before and I still do it. Although I was telling some brothers last night, I'm starting to get a little depressed and I don't get depressed. I walk into a room, I walk into Walmart, I walk into a restaurant, I look at every guy and evaluate whether I could kick his ass or not. Dude, I'm 62. I look at every guy and think, could I take that guy? And what disgusts me is until 2 months ago, this disgusts me. You think it would make me have a big ego. I walk around Walmart and I'm like, I could kick all these guys' asses. I mean, honestly, not false bravado. Like these 30-year-old, 20-year-old dudes, I just look at them and you're just like a soup sandwich, man. And they should be able to mop the floor with me. 25-year-old, 30-year-old man, dude, you're strong. You're supposed to be. You're fit. You're like aggressive. You got testosterone times 40, right? Like, whoa. And it should be like, ooh, not messing with that guy. Excuse me, sir, I'll just buy you a beer. But I look at these guys in their pajamas and their slippers and their little neck beard, and they're like, walking around with their mouth open. I'm like, dude, I would eat you alive. And it shouldn't be that way. You have to cultivate the set that I'm going to fight you. You have to look at somebody like TJ and go, how would I fight that guy? You have to go there in your brain. If it's not like, oh, I can't fight. Okay, cool, then I'm taking your wife. Okay, well, you're bigger than me. You'll beat me up. I guess you can. No, you have to, it's a mindset. And you have to get aggressive and you have to think, I will take this guy out that way. It's weird, right? It's not what you normally hear pastors say. But it's the warrior mindset. You are the protector and the provider. You have to be able to do that. You can't, and that's why I'm getting depressed. Because honestly, I used to think most guys, because I have skill sets too that come into play. But man, I can't even take up a back stance now because of my one knee. I'm just like, whew, this is my power leg to kick with. I can't kick with it anymore. And it's like, ooh, now a lot more of those guys would wipe the floor with me. And I'm like, I'm not liking that feeling. It's hurting not my inner child, it's hurting my inner warrior, right? And so I'm taking steps to address that. But my point is, you should have that mindset, I may have to fight you. It's like, that'd be a hard fight for me. You're a young, fit guy. But you have to cultivate that. You can be nice to everybody. Who was that? Mattis? General Mattis said, be nice, be polite, have a plan to kill everybody in the room. That's not very Christian. No. He did not tell Peter, what are you doing with a sword? He said, reholster that sword. You may need it later, unspoken. Think about that. I have a note here. The ruthless pursuit of excellence. Define excellence and don't let anything get in your way of achieving it. You have to be aggressive towards it. How many people here are as fit as they need to be? Physically fit as they need to be? I haven't seen one guy here that looks like he could win the CrossFit games nationally. So you're not. Me too. Everybody here needs to be fitter. You need to be stronger. You need to be faster. You need to be more flexible. What's another one? Endurance. You have to have more endurance. So do I. But you need to work on that. If you're going to be a warrior, protector, provider, if the world without law is going to come, you having a cool AR-15 with another $3,000 worth of accessories on it is not going to get it. It's the Indian, not the arrow. I had a poster, Special Forces guy, says your mind is your most powerful weapon. Special Forces. We don't accept everyone. It was like a recruitment poster. But it's true. Decide you want to be stronger. Decide you want to learn how to fight. And then do it. Go after it. Get up in the morning. Pastor TJ did a thing a while ago, 75 hard. He got everybody to do it. I said in the beginning, I'm not doing the cold shower part. Ranger school ruined me psychologically, not doing it. But other than that, I did it. It's hard. You got to get up every day and go do, whatever. It's hard. But you know what? It makes you feel better psychologically. It makes you feel better physically. And it's worth it at the end. I had a talk with my wife the other day. We used to do CrossFit. She and I for about a year and a half. I know all the arguments against CrossFit. But we used to do CrossFit. We would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I didn't even like that. And I was a former soldier just a couple months ago. And she hated it. because my wife sleeps till 9 or 10 sometimes. We got up at 5 o'clock. We went in. We were there from 5:30 to 6:30 doing CrossFit. We did it 3 times a week. It was awesome. It sucked getting up. It sucked being in the gym and starting doing CrossFit. It's like, oh God. When I was done and took a shower, and I'm the early guy at work, and I come in, I'm like, oh, I own this building. You are all lesser people than me. It works on your psychology. It makes you a better warrior because you're like, I did hard things today. There's a quote about, I think it came out of the Vietnam War, your enemy is out there training on a quarter cup of rice a day, living in the rain, and dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and that's who you need to prepare to fight. There are some really bad dudes out there, like scary, evil, bad, capable people. Well, I won't have to fight them, because I'm not trained to. You may have to fight them. Warrior mindset. You have to pursue success. You have to never be happy when you're not successful. That's something, it's like, all right, I need to figure out how to be successful next time. You don't have to beat yourself up, but you can't be happy with it. Oh, well, I didn't make it. No, how am I going to do it next time? You have to pursue winning. It's part of the warrior mindset. Anybody here know about the game Risk? It's like a board game. Used to play it all the time. My son was about 10 years old. I taught him how to play. We'd be sitting there playing, and I played him like I'd play you. I would play to win every time, and I would crush him. I wouldn't laugh at him, but like, don't move. Wow. And my wife said, he's never going to like playing if you keep beating him. I'm like, I don't yell at him when I beat him, but I'm not going to give him a break. Do you know the first day my son beat me at Risk, it was like a very proud day for him, and he beat me. I did not let him win. And now about half the time when we play, he wins against me. Pursue winning. Have a winning mindset. Never quit. All right. Cultivate self-discipline. I have pretty good self-discipline, and if my wife brings ice cream home, I will eat it all. I will. That's horrible. And it's kind of like, I think it might be like being an alcoholic, or like when I used to be on Copenhagen. I feel miserable when I'm doing it. I really don't. It's like delicious while I'm eating it. But I do get a little guilt pang, like, I probably didn't have to eat that almost half a gallon of ice cream. But I do. That's not self-discipline. And then so then what I do is because I go shopping with my wife now, security thing. We're walking through the aisle and she's like, are we going to get ice cream? And I always say no. Because I only have to say no once. If we can get past that ice cream aisle and not buy ice cream, we're not going to go home to Shofar Mountain, which is like forever and hard to get to, and then go, I could use some ice cream. Let's go to the store. It's like an hour process. No, we're not going to do it. So I only got to be strong once. But oh man, when she brings ice cream home, I eat it. We need to cultivate self-discipline. And the reason I brought that up is it's in the little things. If you tell yourself that you're going to get out of bed in the morning, say a prayer, and then do 50 push-ups. Get out of bed in the morning, say a prayer, and do 50 push-ups. I don't really feel it today. I'm a little tight, a little old. Do 50 push-ups, or whatever you said, 10, I don't care. Whatever you said, but you have to let your yays be yay, and your nays be nay. Have you ever heard that before? I tell you something that some of you guys do, and I don't know that you personally do it, but I bet you do. Happens with Shofarians, and it drives me freaking crazy. Hey, what time is our 5 o'clock meeting? Why do you consistently come 15 minutes late? Consistently. I get really angry. Every now and then I act just like that. And then my wife does the after-action review afterwards. She's like, people aren't going to want to come if you embarrass them in front of other people. Because I'll do that. We started the meeting, we're talking, and somebody walks in, I go, oh, it's nice to come. What time does this thing start? And they're like, oh, sorry, PJ. Dude, be on time. There is no excuse for you to not be late on time, to be late. I tell my wife this thing, even when I'm late, I'm early. Got caught behind the train, got a flat tire. TJ wants to interview me at 9 o'clock. I'm still going to be there because I'm planning on getting there about 8:30, quarter after, waiting in the parking lot. And that's when I'll be there. Unless I get a flat tire or wait on a train or something, I'll be there at 1:45. I'm still early. Don't be late. It's important for self-discipline. I told you I'd be there at that time, be there at that time. It's a little thing, but it's important for cultivating self-discipline. Fitness. Gonna hit it again. You all need to be fitter. I need to be fitter. Most of us, not all of us, need to lose fat. Not weight. I actually need to gain muscle mass. So the scale, whatever the scale says, I don't care. Look in a full-length mirror, naked. Turn sideways and look at yourself naked. It's horrifying sometimes. Some of you are like, yeah, I'm looking pretty good. Cool, good for you. Most of you are like, holy cow, where'd that come from? You have to know what you have to fix before you fix it. And then fix yourself. Fix yourself. Get stronger, get faster, get more endurance. Pastor Joe, you don't understand. I have bad knees. Actually, I do understand because I have a bad knee. Do you think I just say, okay, I'm going to sit in a chair all day? No, I'm doing other things now. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it, but I can't just sit there. And neither can you. So get fitter. Don't be weak. Don't be slow. You have to know how to fight. Everybody here should be comfortable with the idea that I'm going to fight. J.A., he's very uncomfortable with it. He's a very touchy-feely guy, and the thought of personal violence is horrific to him. J.A. would wipe the floor with me, but I am comfortable with the idea of him saying, let's get in the ring, put on these gloves, we're going to fight. I know where that fight's going, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to fight. I'm comfortable with that idea. You should be comfortable with the idea of fighting. Fighting. I recommend martial arts things, and everyone's like, yeah, well, what about this or what about this? Number one, I don't care. My bottom line is you should do a martial art that involves contact to your face. You should get hit. You should learn what it's like to get hit and not lose your stuff. You punch me in the nose, you pass it over on the side of my head, and I am still fighting. That's uncomfortable. That's scary. A boxing gym? Anybody here been to a boxing gym? I went to one for 3 months because of where I lived when I discovered it and I moved. There are dudes in there who are fighters, right? They're like sweaty and wiry and they're strong and they hit. And they're like, all right, come on, we're going to show you the 1-2. And you're like, okay. And they don't bash your head in, but they hit you. You're like, oh, you got a little face thing on? You think that face thing protects you? Your bell still goes, doing. Wow, I got to strengthen my neck. You learn that. It's like, I want to learn how to box. I need to strengthen my neck because Mike Tyson would kill me if he hit me. My head would go back there. And he's, 60? You need to learn how to fight. I like Krav Maga. The reason I like Krav Maga, it's very simple, it's very basic, and there's a lot of expended effort in every session. You will be sweaty, you will grab people. You have to be comfortable grabbing people, right? Every time, J.A. is a hugger. And I tell him half the time he does it. He goes, come here. And he hugs me. I'm like, I feel so freaking vulnerable when you hug me. Because it's like, underhooks. It's like, no. But you have to be comfortable grabbing people. Sounds weird, but you do. I like Krav Maga. I like if you can go to an MMA gym where they teach you, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, that kind of thing. You should do that. You should go. Or if you have somebody who can teach you, you should take advantage of them teaching you. Be comfortable with the idea that you have to fight. Learn to fight with your hands, your feet, your knees, your elbows, your head, your teeth. Learn to fight with nothing. Then learn to fight with your firearms. I told you that. Do you know what the most basic implement, tool, weapon in mankind is? A stick. You should be able to pick up a stick and do something other than, You should know how to use a stick. Filipino martial arts is really good for teaching you sticks, knives, empty hands. If you can find a Filipino martial arts thing, it teaches you how to pick up this notebook and fight more effectively with this notebook than with hands. You should know how to fight with a stick. Sounds very simple, but sticks are everywhere. How many people here have a pocket knife? We used to do a thing in Special Forces. We'd say, knife check, and it's how fast you could get your knife out and open. And then there'd be the guy, oh, yeah. And you go, oh, you don't have one, do you? Okay, cool, so you have a knife. Now what? Do you know how to fight with your knife? No. You should know how to fight with, everybody carries a knife. You should know basic knife offense, defense. The chances that you and another guy get squared up with a knife are like non-existent. It's not going to happen. But when you train, you learn how to do that because you're each learning something when you do that. You need to learn how to defend against a knife with your empty hands. Most people who get stabbed with a knife, do you know how that happens? They're in a fight, and then they report afterwards, he started hitting me really hard. And it's only afterwards they learned somehow he got a knife out and was working the knife while they were fighting. You don't realize it in the moment, but you have to learn basic, what do you do? What do you do when the guy's sewing machining you? There's things you can learn. You should learn how to do that. And then my final one is environmental weapons. If I've got to fight this is actually too heavy, chair. Do you know how to fight with a chair? Do you know there's techniques to fight with a chair? There are. Do you know you can use a stapler to fight with? This? There are techniques. You should learn them. You should cultivate them. Some of those you can learn on YouTube and then actually practice them. And it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. This will work. This would hurt. A flashlight, a cell phone. It's part of the warrior mindset. Okay, finishing up. Paraphrasing. Yeshua said, get a sword. I think you see now that there's more to it than going out and buying a sword. Just having the sword is not enough. You have to train yourself in how to use the sword. You have to have the proper mindset how to use the sword. And you need to have a sword to be ready to use it. God bless you. Thank you. Do you have any questions? I'm here all day. Yes, sir.
I don't understand. Peter was prevented. It was illegal for him to have a sword.
Right.
How on earth does he train to use it without ever having had one before then?
Right. He clearly had one. I mean, he was carrying it. He didn't just decide to carry it for the first time that day. And clearly they took time out of their schedule to practice somewhere, maybe in the Garden of Gethsemane. All right, here, you take your sword, I take my sword. Now, the Romans like to do this. Okay, so when we do that, they trained with it. Yes, sir.
What do you do when you're 86-year-old, you feel like you want to fight, but you just can't move?
You need to carry a pistol and learn how to use it because you're not rolling around on the ground with anybody. You're just not. And when you go to court, Yah forbid, you hurt your knee. You're going in with a cane. And your hair looks nice now. No. Go in with bedhead and talk a little confused when you do it. Well, what happened, Mr. Meents? Well, he came at me and he was just hitting me and beating me and he was knocking me down and he was going to kill me. And I had to shoot him and I feel terrible about it. And you will walk. That's my plan, like to do that. And then I thought, except I have 3,000 videos of me giving talks like this. And I'm going to say, So, all right. Wait, we're going to wait on the microphone, I guess. They want to record this.
And then pass it to the next person.
What books would you recommend for mindset?
And that is a very good question. And I actually have a couple. They're all in boxes right now. The Bible, Scriptures edition. I think I actually have a book, somebody could look it up, called Warrior Mindset. I think I have a book called that. It's like a martial arts book. And in my mind, it's old. It probably came out in the 70s. Probably now costs $400. Every time I tell people about books that I have that I bought for like $8 or something, they end up being a lot of money. I think it's called Warrior Mindset, though, whoever asked that. Anybody else? But I don't offhand.
Yeshua had been traveling with the disciples.
What?
Yeshua
Yep.
had been traveling with the
Yes.
disciples. I would think he probably knew they had the two swords. The
Of course he did.
question was probably for our benefit, not for information. Wouldn't you say?
I would say it was for the disciples. I mean, everything, it's God breathed and it's all for instruction and it's all for us, yes. But I think he was asking them so that they locked in their mind, maybe he's feeling a little guilty packing that piece. It's like, I don't want Yeshua to yell at me, He's like, all right, hey, who's got a sword? Oh, here's two of them. Okay, that's enough. I think it's just letting them know, yeah, you can carry a sword now. You're going to have to. Yes. The microphone.
Raise your hand like you mean it.
When would be a good age to begin having children become more comfortable with training and?
What would be a good age to start having your children comfortable training? I am not exaggerating. I am 100% telling you the truth. When my kids were infants, laying in their crib on their back, I would take their little arms and hands and I would do block, punch, block, punch, block, punch. I started when they couldn't even talk. And my kids are amazingly fast at that. They really are. My daughter's a school teacher, and I could tell you stories about her and her students kind of goofing around, and she's like, with a pencil up against a kid's neck and goes, I would do that. And they're like, holy cow, Mrs. Fox, okay. Birth. I raise Spartan children. They're actually pretty normal kids, but they can fight. Yes, sir. I'll repeat the question. Can I explain the difference between cover and concealment? Cover stops bullets. Concealment hides you. If I drape a tablecloth over this and squat down, I have concealment, but I don't have cover. Right? Does that make sense? Somebody else? Yes, sir.
Not a question, but an announcement on the topic of fitness. Anyone who's interested, there's a group of us that are going to work out tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. right in front of this building. Everybody's welcome.
5:30, workout tomorrow morning, right out front. Anybody else? Okay. Please go get trained. Please work on your brain. You are a protector and you are a provider, and you need to be able to do that. It's your job. Bless you.